Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the HR and Payroll 2.0 podcast. I'm Pete Tiliakis, and as always, I'm joined by the legendary Julie Fernandez. Welcome, Julie.
Thanks, Pete. Happy summer to everyone out there. And I know you have Amanda as a guest for us to welcome, so why don't you do the honors?
Yes, I am super excited to welcome our next guest, Amanda Kassler. She is the Payroll Shared Services Manager for Otsuka. She and I got acquainted at PayCon this year, and we had a great conversation, and I said, we've got to have her on. So, Amanda, welcome. It's long overdue.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun riffing on to Payroll Con. So
yes,
we're back.
Yeah, we had a good time.
I was so jealous. I know I met up with Pete almost probably immediately after you two met, and he was just Pete. He was all wired up and like excited about your conversation. I'm like, I have FOMO. Let's fix this, please.
Yes. Yeah. So, Julie, you want to do the honors?
Yeah, sure. Amanda, we start every episode just asking folks how it is you got into HR and payroll and why on earth you stay. What's your story?
There's the real question, right?
What's wrong with you that you stick around?
Yeah. No, I tell everybody HR and payroll is for those people who have a lot of heart, and want to make differences. It's one of those, if you want to bring value to an organization, that's how you get into it. I actually was executive assistant for quite a few executives. And with anybody, I started doing HR and payroll because small companies, that's typically who it fell to, was the executive assistant. And I had a lovely mentor. She was phenomenal. She was an awesome CEO. And she said, you really have a niche with this. And she said, you really need to go get the training. So I went to HR management school, got the hook, did my PHR, my SPHR, and then now at this point we're just going to say over 25 in it.
Wow.
So I love your description of this is just for people who have a heart.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of those things because you end up between HR and payroll, you end up in everybody's livelihood. People tell you things. It's almost like you're a referee, you're the priest, you're the, you end up being integrated into their family, whether they're going through medical issues or there's loss of you lose an employee and now you're integrated with their family, helping them go through that struggle. And at the same time, if you're with an organization, you're building that organization up. You're the heart and the soul that brings the people in from scratch because you end up hiring them, interviewing them, you pay them during the lifetime they're with there. And in some cases, you watch them after they've had 20 something years with the organization, move on to their next endeavor. So I really feel like it's the heart and soul of a company.
Totally agree. And I think that I'd love to get into that with you. I think that is overlooked widely by many. And it's a lot more than that too. It's the wheels, I feel like, on the strategic engine. But I want to tell you a personal story that I feel like I really resonated when you just told me that is when I was in the military, I audited HR data. I've told this story before, right? In a shared service center, one of the first ones. I didn't know what that was. I thought I was in white collar prison, to be honest with you, but that's also another story.
Yes.
I had no idea I was working in HR. I had no idea. I mean, it was very foundational being able to maintain HR data that ultimately affected pay and entitlement and training and, a promotion and all of those things. But what's interesting is we were a first of its kind on Paris Island, right? The shared service center. So everyone sort of knew about us because it was news and they were having to change, going down instead of going to their battalion office, they were coming to this shared service center and this customer experience environment, if you will. And the interesting thing was people started to identify us outside of the office. So we would be, say, at the grocery store or like pumping gas or something at the PX. And literally have a sergeant come across the parking lot and be like, hey, can I talk to you about my pay slip? And they would ask a question. And at the time, you think like, wow, this is really intrusive. I'm just trying to go somewhere with my family. But looking back on that, like we were a lifeline to them and they were so thankful for someone to explain to them and deal with something that I think that you're right. There's a certain responsibility that I think payroll has that is different than the other parts of the organization and very different from anything else in the back office. And I think you do have to have a heart in order to make it. So
And they always talk about that concept of management by walking around. They must have followed an HR person because you literally can't go to the parking lot. You know, you leave at 6:00 at night and yet you still don't make it to your car until over 6:30 because 3 people stop you in the parking lot. You're at the grocery store, you're wherever because everybody's like, oh, I needed you and I keep forgetting.
Well, how about, Julie, like how many times in your career has a friend or family member, like around a dinner or whatever, been like, oh, you work in HR. Let me tell you my problem. And then it's like, I don't do that part of HR. You know what I mean? Like,
but in the meantime, anybody who knows and has worked in HR like we have knows that the best stories are in HR.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm writing the memoirs of an HR when I retire.
Yeah.
And
sometimes they make it on the Jumbotron.
Yes, and we'll change the names to protect the stupid, right? Because
that's
there's some really stories.
Yeah.
Yes.
All of this just makes me think, you have to have a heart. Well, like, take that, AI. How are you going to do that part?
Yes.
Yeah.
I really know.
The other thing too is like, I don't know if people realize how much payroll, I mean, it should, but it really embodies the culture in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? It really, I think, brings it all together. Obviously holds it together. Trust-wise, but
nobody ever needs HR and payroll until they need to hire somebody, fire somebody, or there's something wrong with their check, and then everybody comes screaming. But that's part of that is our own fault because we are the worst marketers. When IT rolls out something new, everybody in the company knows about it. When they do the same old project of uploading, Microsoft is doing an upgrade, everybody knows about it. If sales is generating something new, everybody knows about it. We do open enrollment. We do a system change, and we're lucky if we get 2 minutes of broadcast time. So we're also really bad about marketing. I would love to see us as an HR payroll industry to really become more marketers. We'll look at the materials we're sending out with that marketing eye, make sure that we're sending it out in bulk to create more of that knowledge and that acceptance and that realization of us as a team.
You talked about that a little bit on the source. I'd love to push on that because I experienced that myself as a payroll and HR leader coming up. I always felt like the bridesmaid. I never felt like the bride. I never felt like I should be the bride. Do you know what I mean? And some of that's just the way we could talk about that. We could talk about why that is. And a lot of folks feel that way.
I really think I know what the difference is. If you look at most other departments and companies, they're project management based. And we are not. And, if you go and start talking agile, waterfall, you start talking project management, payroll people look at me and go, no. And I teach, when I do conferences, I teach project management and strategic project management for HR and payroll professionals because I have a PMP and I know that being able to talk their language, right? When you're rolling out something and, all the other group are sitting at the table, they're talking PMP and project management language and we don't have that. But when I sit with professionals, I remember doing a session with about 150 HR professionals last year. And I remember asking them, how many of you think you have projects? And very few raised their hands. And I said, projects is anything that has a start date and an end date. Open enrollment is a project.
My favorite flavor of that, we don't recognize we have projects is we don't recognize that we need a business case. Because HR are the people-y people, right? And so they're like, well, so what's your business case for your big, huge, big, beautiful transformation, whatever. And they're like, oh, but it doesn't matter what it costs. We just want the best, service delivery and the best technology. And it's like, I guarantee you this matters what it costs.
Yeah.
Maybe not to you, but the guy you got to get approval from or gal you got to get approval from definitely cares about this.
Yeah. Totally.
Yes.
Amanda, you talked a little bit about that on the source, right? About payroll needing to do a better job. I think you said of selling itself, right? And I'll be honest with you, when I kind of came out of industry, if you will, working in enterprise, working for vendors, and I went to work for Deloitte as a consultant, that was something that I actually wasn't great at. Is going out and saying me, right? Look what I did. Look what I can do. Like payroll's just never that department, right? To be the first one, like I said, never the bride. And so like I get asked this a lot, like how do I level up? How do I change the attitude? How do I engage and sort of show my eminence? I'd love to hear your point of view on that because like how can payroll sell themselves better or even HR as well?
I look at it from an aspect of we have to look at everything. And you kind of have to start keeping you a log. So like right now, I'm doing quarterly governance meetings and we're sharing that detail up to our leadership. And we list, just in the last, 6 months, we took 11 people to Payroll Congress. We got, 2 new CPPs. We got, 6 people who, 6 new SHRM memberships. We got 6 new payroll org membership. We did 4 new GL setups. We've done, so we kind of outline and kind of keep that rolling log because nobody is going to pat yourself on the back except for you. And if you go out and look at any other group in the organization, IT will tell you how many upgrades they did, how many system updates.
Yes.
We have ticketing. Like with us, we went ahead this last year and we created our own Jira ticketing system, so that we could start keeping track of all the requests we're getting in, right? Because everybody, you get these instant messages, right? MS Teams, hey, can you help? And it's always can you quickly look at this for me?
Yes, quickly. Real quick, easy.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So when you can come back and tell your leadership, which I think this killed my leadership, last year, we actually doubled the number of tickets that IT took.
Wow.
So
payroll related.
Yeah. So we were double the amount of payroll took double the amount of tickets that IT took in the year. And that's pretty, when you stop and think about that, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
That is.
Because you can't interact with IT without the tickets. Like there's no human behind that stuff.
No.
So.
Chicken or the egg. Chicken or the egg. So Amanda, maybe for those that don't know Otsuka, talk to us a little bit about your world. What is the business like? I know it's very diverse, very synergistic, it sounds like. But talk about that, and then talk about like how that translates to the culture, and then how you look at payroll.
Well, we're really cool. So it's a 105-year-old family-owned Japanese company. Otsuka America, which I work for, we are the North American Holdings Company. So we have about 17 FEINs that are in our HR payroll systems with our group that we help service, manage, in some cases run payroll for. And it's just a phenomenal company. The culture is, we're very much in the pharmaceuticals, but we're always very much from every aspect of the organization. So if there's water that goes into vitamins, then we own a water company. If there's, herbs that go into the vitamins, we have a vineyard so that we grow our own, grow our own grapes, and we grow our own herbs. We have nature vitamins. And so, we're very, one of the groups that I just brought on board in January are the groups that did the R&D and developed heart stents. So it's just a very, energized company of not just looking at the organization as a whole, but the world as a whole. So we're very much pushing the health care of us as a world and what our health looks like in the future, women's health, children's health, mental health, and any aspect that we can do to improve that.
Yeah. How big of a payroll are you managing?
Well, overall, we have in North America about 8,000 in our system. And then I'm running actual payroll for 3 different of the companies. And then I'm doing system administration for all the others.
Wow. Now, are you bringing them all onto one, or are you on multiple things right now?
We did a huge cost savings. The group started, and that's how I got involved with them. The group started in 2020, and they needed a project manager to help get the groups moved from all their individual systems. So I've worked off and on with them since 2020. Well, last year they said, okay, you really just need to come on board.
Yeah.
So,
let's go all the way.
I celebrated my 1 year in April with them, but I've actually worked with them off and on since 2020. And so we've now moved.
That's so cool.
Yeah, we've moved 17 companies into a shared instance of, we have 2 different systems, one that's doing HR and benefits and one that's running payroll time off. And we're working with other groups to expand. I mean, I'm actually starting my Canadian payroll certification in September.
Oh, all right. You have so many letters behind your last name that I don't know if you need another one.
No, I really don't. But no, I do. I'm a firm believer those certifications help, because when you're sitting at the table and someone asks you a question, you kind of know, hey, this is really what I'm doing.
Yeah. I want to get back to that, but I want to pause you there and ask you about the certifications, acquiring or having, right? In this modern age. Do you see that as still critical, is still staying viable? Or, I mean, what about maybe an MBA? I'm starting to see some very high level payroll leaders with MBAs, but also CPPs as well. I mean, what would be your recommendation to someone?
The 3 major ones that, 4 really, if you think about it. Definitely your project management, because now you can talk everybody else's language. The CPP is great because you get that basic knowledge of payroll, but I really recommend getting the HR one as well, because if you look at the CPP exam, about a third of it is HR. And so we're definitely, doing those. I did go get my, my master's, but I got it in leadership and management instead of a standard MBA. And that is just because we're trying to move to the next level. So those would be the four that I look at.
How to think like an executive, so to speak. Yeah.
Just for folks who might be listening and might not know, I think you said to get the HR one as well, and I'm pretty sure that's SHRM, right? That's where you went for that.
Yes.
For the HR
Well,
certs,
I actually have both. I have my HRCI and my SHRM. I actually prefer the HRCI, just a personal preference. I think that the content was a little bit more of what I was looking for as far as testing goes. And I'll let you know how Canada goes because I'm doing Canada this fall.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome. Well, good luck. You're a pro. You'll nail it. I'm sure. So I love it. Yeah. I contemplated. I didn't get a CPP as a payroll leader. I chose to get my MBA instead. I thought about getting an SPHR at one point, but I didn't end up doing that. But yeah, I was just curious how they're evolving and how people are seeing them. I think they're very, very beneficial foundationally. And I think they definitely help you put some, obviously, guardrails around knowledge that make sure that you're, on the latest curve, if you will. And I also think there's a lot of intangible things that are taught in there as well, leadership and other things too that are very, very beneficial. And to your point, the HR part of it, componentry in the payroll side. So yeah, I was just curious about that. But coming back to Otsuka, you guys are doing a lot, right? I know when you and I talked the first time, we were talking about what you were doing with data. Obviously, you take a very project management, program management approach to this. I mean, what's going on at Otsuka and how are you managing all that? What's kind of, your roadmap and what are you guys working towards right now?
Moving into that payroll shared services. So we're actually looking at, we have over 100 companies. And so we're looking at taking that model and offering it to more than just North America, to see, again, leveraging the knowledge so that because if you think about it with the smaller organizations, sometimes you don't have someone who may have those upper levels of knowledge or systems, access. You may not have access to better tools or better resources because you're paying a crazy dollar amount just to get a basic payroll. And so we're looking at leveraging that. So we want to be able to use our group size to keep getting more and more services to offer so that even our smaller entities of only 10 people can get good services, taking some of that administrative off of our payroll and our professionals to where we can do things like full service garnishments and full service taxes. So that way, again, taking that strain, and it's also it's a reduction in risk and liability because now you know that you have an entity who's aware of the changing laws and the regulations. But that's kind of, for me, the next big thing. I mean, payroll is evolving. HR has kind of evolved already. It went from personnel administration to human resources, and now it's people. But payroll's going to do the same thing because we're no longer just turning a piece of paper, check the box that you did whatever. Now we have to start looking at systems integration. We need to look at data control. We have to look at compliance. So we're becoming very much auditors and compliant experts of, we built the system, but is the system still working the way we should be? Or these 5 laws changed. What do we need to do to change the system? So we're really trying to move that picture and utilize a lot of different tools to build a bigger picture to show our leadership cost savings over time, how that would look 5 years from now, and what those costs would look like if we bring in larger groups. Kind of the things where we're able to audit and find compliance things and capture those, fix them before we actually get a penalty or a problem with it. So I really think it's going to evolve majorly in the next 5 years.
Yeah, I love that. I'm a big proponent and fan of the shared service model. I've been a part of 2 major builds that have been successful. Proud of that. And I think it does, I don't know if it's inherent or just because they're making an investment, but executives are much more acute to what's going on and much more open to having conversations about improving it and transforming it and all of that. Do you notice that? I mean, kind of the before and after shared services effect of how you're having the communication changes, I feel like.
It has really changed.
Yeah.
And if you're to me, the way to get ahead of that is to start building those reports and those metrics, whether it's ticketing or, number of items that you're finding, your compliance penalties, your tax amendments, whatever those items are, and build that case up to say, because like right now, I just did I'm working on a business case over taxes about, okay, well, if we get a strategic person who does nothing but works all the tax jurisdictions, all the compliance changes with it, there's a business case for that of what it would save us longer term.
Right. You're taking a very functional approach, it sounds like, to scale.
Yes.
Yeah.
And build it very strongly from the foundation. I would rather spend several years getting the foundation set up, whether that's having the ticketing system in place that can handle the volume, having, those standard operating procedures that are ready to go, so that you can then scale it up.
Yeah. We did the same thing at Disney. We started off with kind of more lift and shift at first, bringing things in sometimes, and then maybe converting it as we brought it in to a new system. But then also kind of as an immediate, I would say within the first year or two, as we brought the work in, we began to break it apart and functionalize it. So we had a team doing all of the taxes for all the 100 and whatever entities. We had a team monitoring all the garnishments, right? It took us a little while, but you're right. It really did. It allowed us to repurpose people, right? And shift people around and say, okay, we don't need so many people doing this. Now we can take on this more work that's coming in. It was really
and leverage
really
skills, because you have some people who are just phenomenal at that. They know the ins and the outs, where to call, how to do things. And that's their cup of tea, but yet they hate doing tips, or they hate doing, time cards. So it's really...
We're having to focus on everything in a process versus maybe just, and I know that does get a little minutia, but the process improvement can keep that minutia out. If you're always kind of iterating.
I'll tell you one trend that I've been seeing more this year than I have in prior years, and I think it has to do with the advent of having global process owners as well in place that are really responsible for end-to-end processes and looking end-to-end, is I'm seeing a number of larger organizations taking payroll activities and splitting them process-wise to pre-payroll, data inputs, payroll, pre-payroll approvals, and then, the outputs bit, and trying to get their synergies and harmonize and bring a globe of things together that way, which makes a lot of sense, but it also, maybe doesn't care easily for the cyclical nature of payroll. So it's like, well, what happens when I'm the front end team and somebody else is the after it runs team? How much can I level that out if everybody gets paid on the first or the last or the mid of the month, right? And is it really practical? So I don't know if you've toyed with any of that, Amanda.
No, we're doing more of a standardization. So I've actually been converting groups, and so that all of my teams have the same payroll cycle. So that way, if somebody goes out on vacation and they're a one-person payroll department, they've got coverage. And then we can, we're this way too. We've been working on moving a lot of our, like a lot of organizations, paid in the future, had hourly employees on semi-monthly. So we've just been a lot of standardizing, bringing things into a compliance to where, you have a nice, good handle of this is how it works. Here's the compliance aspect of it. And then you can build the analytics around that, showing, okay, by doing this, this is where we can monitor overtime better. So we can say, okay, hey, here's what your overtime looks like. Did you know if you had this much overtime, you could probably hire this many additional FTEs, reduce that overtime and that strain holistically on your employees, give them a better quality of life without so many hours work, and you would bulk up your staff so that you have more people to cover when people are out sick and things like that. So that return of investment in payroll.
That's so smart. And it's the harder thing to do. So it's great that you have that business case like DNA, right? Because if you're trying to shift a frequency or shift folks, from a prepaid to a postpaid, like there's a business case and somebody has to make them whole in order to make that transition in the first place. The other thing I'm dying to ask you is just about legal entity integration, because the way that your company is organized and the number of different businesses, it has to be very difficult to be able to actually consolidate legal entities and get some of the synergies from that. Like,
and in
approach?
Some cases we don't consolidate. Other places we do. Where it makes sense, we do consolidate. We'll buy new companies and consolidate or add on. But in other cases, like we have a vineyard. I mean, that's why I said when you think pharmaceuticals, you don't think wine. It's just not but we have a beautiful vineyard that's been expanding. And so, in that case, that really doesn't make sense to, consolidate them. So instead, it's more of supporting that entity to ensure we're doing what they need, making sure we're compliant with everything that they need, making sure everybody gets what they need, paid on time. Because nobody ever remembers payroll until you don't get paid on time.
Yes, right.
But it's doing those other things to make sure that they're very holistically, and we're and then going back to them and saying, okay, here's what we can do to streamline things better. The big initiative I'm working on, I'm launching next week and stuff. When we do onboarding with employees, everybody onboards with HR, and I've been on the HR side of the house because I've been human resources. But that's everybody's face is with HR. Everything's onboarded HR. And then in HR is this little thing. Oh, and there's payroll. Well, I'm rolling out payroll.
It's an afterthought. Always an afterthought.
Yes.
Sadly.
So I'm rolling out payroll onboarding.
Yeah.
So where there's a secondary onboarding step, where we introduce ourselves as a team. We explain the concept of payroll. We explain the things we want them to do, right? Because HR tells them what they want to do. We don't get that opportunity. So we're actually starting to roll out payroll onboarding in addition to our HR onboarding.
That's great. Yeah, it's helping them help you.
And I think you mentioned payroll and time in the same words, so that's just natural. I mean, that there's so much engagement in those two things that it's got to be almost like, how did we not do this before?
Well, and we're real big components on the earned wage aspect. So at the same time, HR may just throw it in as an afterthought. Whereas when we do payroll onboarding, we want people to say, no, we have these options available to you. And, with companies, when you had credit unions, companies were very big about promoting the credit unions and stuff. But in payroll, we're not good about promoting that. So part of our onboarding is we have pay cards available for you. We have digital coin available for you with the digital wallet.
Yeah.
And we need to make
sure. It should be just like direct deposit.
Yes. And, we have a very international employee base. So we have international transfers available. And so we want to make sure that we're, again, marketing ourselves, and we're doing that from the get-go as the new hire, so that we're marketing ourselves, explaining what we need them to do to make their payroll successful and make sure they get paid on time. And at the same time, it checks our boxes.
Yeah, absolutely. And it gives you, look, I mean, I think the thing that payroll leaders need to understand is that these tools aren't just for the employee. They're actually tools to help you do things and solve problems, right? Same day checks in California, snowstorms in Texas, whatever. It's a lever for you to look like a hero. And I think that's what's wrong. Why not lean into that? I understand the concern around controls. I understand the concerns around, maybe I wouldn't use it or whatever if someone has an opinion. But the reality of it is that you have 5 different generational lenses. They all have a different attachment to money and whatever, and desire to achieve things. Why not give them the opportunity to shape an experience that makes sense? And so, I love it. Sounds like you guys have a very positive pay experience.
Yeah, we brought our first entities on, and we have a 22% utilization rate on those. And everybody thinks it's going to be your hourly workers without bank accounts. And surprisingly, not half of them are higher level positions that are leveraging it for other reasons. So that's why I tell everybody,
what the data says.
You have to stop thinking about you, and you have to start thinking about your work group as a whole of what's beneficial to them.
Yeah, your customer, for sure. Are you guys, is it safe to say you guys are really building a center of expertise, a center of excellence in your world? Or are you kind of labeled as such, or is it really just living the spirit of it, so to speak?
We actually labeled that.
Good. Okay. Now, do you do that for WFM?
We're actually called
payroll?
The Payroll Center of Excellence.
Okay. I love it. Payroll Center of Excellence. Do you do the same thing with your workforce management? I'm seeing a little bit more of that myself in my research, as more firms are starting to create a WFM CoE next to payroll COEs as well.
We kind of have one on the HR side, but each entity has their one. We're building ours more of a shared group, because we have 17 different payroll professionals within our groups. And so, each one's processing different. We have some that are processing weekly, some are semi-monthly, some are in arrears, some are future. And so we operate as a place that they can call for expertise.
There's a part of me that's cringing, like, if David Ulrich is listening to this, he's got to be like pulling his hairs out of his head, right?
Why?
Well, just like the titling or the bucketing of shared services versus centers of expertise or, CoEs.
But isn't that what a shared service is in some ways?
It is. It is.
Yeah.
And yet the naming, the nomenclature has been so tied to whether it's a transactional expertise or a design expertise, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure that's just a scrambling notion, I think.
Yeah. It's the output. It's the outcomes, right?
Yeah.
I think is what you're looking for in the end. Call me whatever you want. Just call me.
Yeah.
So, but how are you looking at skills? Are you hiring new skills? Are you training them? Like what is the role that you feel you're building for in your future payroll operation?
We're doing both. So we are currently taking all of our payroll, that we have. We're taking them to training. We brought 11 of them to Florida to the Payroll Congress so that they could go firsthand, not only network with each other and build some relationships with ones. And we're talking from across the country because I'm in the center of the country. I have payroll people in California. I have payroll people in Maryland. So it was bringing everybody to a central place so that we could build the relationships. We were able to sit and chat with people so that we were kind of able to identify, strengths and maybe some areas where people needed additional training. We were able to get that training. And then we're also conducting training on an ongoing basis. So we're doing quarterly trainings with our crew, making sure that they're up on compliance. We're doing individual trainings. And then if they reach out for help and assistance, we're training them to build that. At the same time, we are looking at hiring in to our shared services model to bring in even more experience. So my next step, like I said, we're looking at Canada. So I'll be bringing in someone who has Canadian certification that I don't have yet. So that way they can help bolster me.
Yes, there you go.
I mean, that's the goal is to get that more global knowledge and skill set.
How are you looking at things like project management, PMPs, and data science? I mean, I'm hearing some folks are starting to employ data scientists in their teams. Is that something you're looking at as well?
I really think HR departments and payroll departments need to have an IT component. They need to have someone who is an HRIS or payroll systems expert, because a lot of the times you end up having to rely on IT to fill that role for you. And unfortunately, IT does not know some of the customizations and the things that need to be built on the HR and payroll side to make things work. I mean, how many of us had a project where IT, it led the implementation of it. And then when you got there to run it, things weren't quite working the way they were supposed to. But I really think you need that HR person, in your ranks who has that system expertise, who can use BI reporting to pull your data, who can go out and use, whether it's Dynamics and Microsoft SharePoints using MFT sites to transfer data between your groups, SFT, language behind that. See, I luck out because I have a lot of that, but I'm still going to be looking for that role to, again, I know enough to be dangerous. I need someone who's an expert in it.
Yeah. Well, you talked about a lot of your job being somewhat governance now, right? I mean, is that how much of that is your role? I mean, is it your role, or do you have folks helping you with that part of it?
There's actually multiple, but I would say probably over 50% of my job is governance.
Yeah. Stakeholder management, that sort of thing.
Absolutely. Where are we making changes? Where are we making improvements? Where can we make more improvements? Where do we need to standardize more? Where can we clean up, streamline, looking at those innovations?
Yeah.
So, and at the same time, looking for any risk or holes or gaps that we can, poxy in and make sure that we don't have those.
Yeah, no, I love that. You're really living the 5 pillars of modern payroll, which I put out in the Payroll Profession Confidence Index last year. And I'd say you're checking the box on so many of those, and it. Yeah, I love it. I'm really proud of you. That's why we had to have you on. But one of the things in the new one this year that I put in there was a new ROI scorecard. I don't know if you had a chance to check that out. I just think that there's more to payroll than cost takeout, right? More to payroll than just getting rid of people and needing less people. And so what I'm trying to really say is like, let's start measuring payroll from a different lens and start showing the contribution, to your point, right? Selling us, right? Saying, hey, look what we're bringing to the table. Look what again, how many projects, how many, tickets, how many, these things that are barometric to your performance, but then what's the output? Like, what's the bottom line impact? And that's what I'm really hoping to shape. So I'd love to see if you see your lens on that and have you tinker with it a little bit as someone living the 5 pillars, so to speak.
Well, we did just do that. So that is one thing that we just provided to our leadership early this year was here's the investment that we put into creating this shared services model and one standard system.
Yeah.
And here is the return of investment on what everybody's cost savings now looks like 5 years into the program and how much we've now saved the organization as a whole. And now we're projecting that out for the next 5 years. If we can, we're at that 8,000. And as you know, as soon as we pass that 10, that's another pricing, thing. So we're looking at that if we can turn that lever and get more groups to join, what's that going to then turn around and look for everybody as a cost savings? And like I said, we've added so many additional services. We're saying, and now we have this service, and this service, and it's for less than what you used to be paying 5 years ago. So yes, the cost savings is there. You just got to leverage it.
Yeah. No, I think it's stellar. I just want to see payroll also, and it doesn't have to be my scorecard, but any scorecard that'll allow payroll to start looking at their value beyond that, right? And the things that they are contributing that companies don't even measure. And it's happening. We're just not telling that story,
I would love to know, as someone who has business case rigor in your DNA, like what was either the funnest or the most unique or what was a business case savings source that surprised you or excited you or delighted you or call out something crazy. I'm sure you've done some fun things with this.
Well, I think if payroll's looking for a very quick turnaround on where they can show some impact is take a look at your deductions and arrears. So many times because of the offset, payroll takes the deduction, right? But yet benefits and HR are handling the leaves. And so there's so much of a gap to where that money never ends up getting recovered or gets recognized or even determined with it. And I'll even give you my best case scenario is when we finally started setting it up, we went ahead and put every employee into our automated deductions and arrears tracker, not just the people out on leave. And we were actually able to identify an employee who had figured out he could enroll in every single highest expensive paid benefit there was, and he didn't have to pay for it because when the reductions of the deductions came, it got him down to a threshold to where you couldn't reduce him anymore. So he wasn't paying for half of his benefits. So, I mean, if you just sit and spend some time.
That's a great story.
Good for him.
Yeah. But if you spend some time and create that kind of relationship, you'll be amazed at how much money you'll.
Yeah. There's a lot of leakage all over payroll time, HR, just broadly.
We have a whole probably payroll community out there that's like, that's genius. How could I not have thought about that before? That was crazy.
Oh man, I've been on the end of some weird things that we've found that just no one configured, right? No one knew, and there were controls that didn't catch it, and obviously it was a learning lesson. But very good.
Yes.
So Amanda, I know. I mean, look, I could go on and on. I always say this to a lot of our guests, but what are some of the lessons learned that you've kind of captured in your experience with this? The good and the bad, right? There's probably been some opportunities. What would you say to folks out there maybe on this transformation journey that maybe you didn't realize before you got involved in some of it?
I would probably say take your time. Too many organizations, it's a rush, right? We're in the middle of all of our normal duties. And so you're so bogged down in the weeds that sometimes you don't take a breath, take for yourself. Do some of the training so that you feel more comfortable and you can look at things with a different lens and a different eye. Take 2 steps back and edit yourself. I mean, are you doing processes just so that you can check a box or just so that you can say you did the process? Take a look at your metrics. Are you reporting something that is even worthwhile? I mean, if a big thing in payroll, the big thing is accuracy, right? We like to report accuracy, but let's face it, if that accuracy number never changes across a 2 or 3 year period, are you really reporting the right thing? Or should you be looking at, okay, how many garnishments do we have? Do we need to partner with the HR to do maybe some financial training with our staff because we're getting way too many garnishments and, a lot of them are bankruptcy or whatever, and maybe we need to bring. So, I mean, there's more holistic ways that we can, look at our business and take a step back. Sometimes we've been doing it for too long and doing the same thing, and we forget to stop, take a little time for ourselves, retrain and get caught up with the newer things, and then edit what we're doing.
And any advice for those that are kind of shy about maybe putting themselves out there? I know you gave a little advice earlier, but those that are kind of, have a story to tell, but aren't really confident that anyone will listen, because I know we've all been there at some point in our career. Mm-hmm. What advice would you give to that payroll leader that might be hiding behind, that fear of sticking their neck out, so to speak? Yeah.
Probably two things. One is sit and write it down, and then let another payroll person or one of your network take a look at it and say, hey, yeah, no, this is worthwhile. Or just put yourself out there, for something, go out and talk to your peers and say, I'm doing this. Is this worthwhile to tell my leadership? And I mean, we're such a close-knit group. We will never let another payroll person fail if we can help it. So, I mean, just reach out to the peers and say, hey, I would love to have 5 minutes of your time. Can you take a look at this and tell me, is this worthwhile? Is it not worthwhile? Are we going down the right track? Should I edit this? Should I change it? And, how do I put that up? Might as well use each other. That's what we're here for.
Agreed. I think there's also, I would add to that, I would say just from experience, I think let the data do the talking. You don't have to necessarily say much. You can show some dashboards with some data that matters to that leader, tell a story with it, and highlight that to them and let them figure it out. You don't have to necessarily be the, you don't have to do it all, I guess is what I'm saying. The data can speak for itself. And I think if you can bond over that data, you'll begin to see those executives really lean into you. And we've had some great advice on here from some of our guests about this, but I think it's a bit of just taking a chance, right? Believing in yourself, believe in your data, it's quality, hopefully, and tell a story with it. And I think you'll find there's a lot of magic in the other end of it. Along that line, to just wrap things up, you and I opined a little on the source, but what's the future of payroll look like? Not just at Otsuka, but in your vision, what are we going to be talking about in 10 years now for payroll?
We're going to be governance. We're going to be governance and compliance. People are going to be paying themselves because it'll be an automated transaction. You're going to punch in, punch out. If you didn't punch, you're going to have to get with someone to fix it. And it's going to be basically putting wages in an account probably on a daily basis. I mean, there won't be real pay periods. It's going to be pay as you go.
I agree. I think our cycles are going to shrink. I think you're very much talking a real-time experience for sure. I mean, just the way payments itself are going, I think the expectation will be driven that way no matter what. And the speed at which we can calculate constantly, right? I mean, continuous calculation's been around for a minute, unified systems doing all that internally. And when you start talking about the payment solutions that are available now and the ability for people to basically almost run payroll like an edge computing sort of at the point of impact, I think it's very exciting. It's also a little scary, but we need it, right? And payroll is, I love where the role's going, just a totally different eminence level. Julie, anything else?
No, I was just going to say, I think folks will want to know exactly where you're going to be and how to get a hold of you, Amanda.
I'm on LinkedIn. I have been since the beginning, so reach out to me and I'm happy to help. I do a lot of classes, a lot of training, and a lot of conferences to try to help build up our network and build up our knowledge. So
we'll include your LinkedIn and your website here in the podcast description. But before we go, I know you're at some place special. We talked about this. I think you told me when we were out in Orlando that you're a gamer. I think you're at a big convention. Like, tell me about that, because I'm super interested to hear. Are you dressed up? Like, what's the whole vibe? What's the deal?
I am a nerd. And yes, I'm at the largest gaming convention in all of North America, longest going, over 55 years. It was created by Gary Gygax, the creator of Dungeons and Dragons. And so it's considered the best 4 days in gaming. It's almost 70,000 people a day. And yes, I am going to be in costume. I'm going to be a Norn tomorrow, a Sith Lord on Friday, and I'm going to be a Valkyrie on Saturdays.
Costumes. Nobody will know who you are from day to day.
Very cool. What is your game of choice, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, Dungeons and Dragons. I'm an original Dungeons and Dragons player.
Okay. So you play, so role play games, not so much the, not the video games.
I do those too. I play Baldur's Gate, but board games, video games, miniature games, Dungeons and Dragons, live action role playing. Yes, all of it.
I love it. I love it. A payroll geek and a gaming nerd, I think you said. Perfect. We'll take it.
Great combination.
Yep. No, it's a perfect combination. Next, you know what? We need another episode with you in costume. That would have been even bigger. But listen, Amanda, seriously, thank you so much. I'm really proud of you. You're absolutely living the 5 pillars of modern payroll. I commend you and your organization. Keep doing your thing. And thank you so much for sharing with our audience. I know it's going to be very, very beneficial. And so all the best to you. Thank you so much. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll be in touch soon. And don't forget to like, subscribe, share, all the things we talked about before. We need your help on that. And we'll be back really soon.